when you put the cigarette out on your tongue, was that in the script?
I was just bored. Yeah. I also ate a lit cigarette, which they wouldn't show. And I also stuck a cigarette in my nose, and I inhaled the smoke, and I blew it out in Aaron's face when I was standing this close to him. And Aaron's looking at me like, what the f***?
So good to have all you guys here. Yeah, put the white clips on the bottom on that one, and clips up on those.
Great to be here.
Great to be here. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, you just did.
Hello?
You're good.
Hey, good to be here.
Yes. It is absolutely great to have you here. We have actually a couple Pittsburgh Steelers fans that I've seen online. You can't get away from it, can you?
Can't get away from it. And I'm sorry about Thursday night, but you know, win or lose, I bleed black and gold.
There you go.
I helped get rid of your offensive coordinator, so thank you. Or you're welcome.
So I got a couple questions for you guys, and we're going to open it up to the audience. So each of your characters are just like in a class of their own with like intensity and especially believability. How much flexibility did Vince Gilligan give you guys in developing your character with his material?
I wrote all my own lines.
Good.
You know, it's always such a great question. It's one that's often asked. And the way I normally answer it, I'm going to answer it again. The writing was impeccable on the show. Completely impeccable. And for me, a personal insight into how I was able to craft what I did to be able to be in concert with that excellent writing was to find the space in between the words. You know, for an actor, you want to dissect sometimes and you think maybe you can make it better or say it better. If it doesn't fit in my mouth, then I'm asking the question, how can this fit in my mouth in a way that it comes out more seamlessly? But with this show, I respected the writing so much, I wanted to just be a channel to be able to channel what that writer's intention is. And if I was able to do my work well, which I think I did, it was to find a way to create my character within those parameters and to allow that to be seamlessly who I would become as Gustavo Fring. And for me, it was space. It was allowing myself the space to live within each word.
And also the hiding in plain sight. Was that actually in the script, or is that something that you helped develop with that? The the hiding in plain sight.
I'd love to be able to take credit for all of it. My ego, my ego would just love that. But would that really have you love me more? Hiding in plain sight was a stage direction that inspired me to become a regular on this show. It was a stage direction that was in the second episode that I did as a guest star on the show that they invited me to, and that was an illumination. To be illuminated by something that's written as a stage direction, not as an active line, it worked on me. It worked on me over and over and over again because I thought in my own life, how often do I know what you really do? How often do I know what you really do? Like really do? You know, like my neighbor who's carrying the garbage to the curb, and do I really know what that person does? And so it made me think about the idea that many of us wear many different masks, and that's okay. For me, it's okay that I wear many different masks as long as I know when I'm wearing them and what my intention is behind wearing them. And it allows me to know who I am on a deeper level, and it allows me to know when I'm really being real and when I'm not. I have a daughter who just turned 20. When she was 14, we would be doing something and I'd go, ha, ha, ha. And she'd look at me and she'd say, Papa, cut out the fake laugh. And I'd look at her, that's not a fake laugh. And she said, oh, that's a fake laugh and you do it all the time. And so it started to have me observe who I really am behind that mask. And so for me, who's an actor who takes on many different masks, and rightfully so, it helps me to be in observance of space and time and all of you and myself.
And how much flexibility were you given?
My story is a little different. I turned down the part 3 times before I actually did it. And Vince called me and he said, what do we have to do to get you to do it? But I was already shooting another show called The Closer. So Vince said, we can shoot it on the weekends, which is like hell because you're already working 5 days a week, like 12 to 14 hours, and you're going to shoot everything on the weekend. So, I'm talking to Vince on the phone, and I said, okay, shoot it on the weekend. I go, you can't change anything I do, and you have to pay me double what you offer. And I'm thinking Vince is going to say, like, go F yourself. And there's a long pause, and then he says, okay. And then I went, oh, shit. I'm like, oh, what did I do? Now, you're committed to doing this. So, that's why I only did like 4 episodes because it was just too much. I was working on 3 different things at one time, shooting an episode, working on the next one, and then working on Breaking Bad. And then, I show up and, what I wanted to, when I show up to Albuquerque, Vince goes, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. He goes, yeah, right. So we go and, we start doing the first thing. And then I told the crew, and I said, listen, I'm not going to rehearse. And they're like, what? And I said, I'm not going to rehearse, just block and shoot, which is kind of crazy. And they're all looking at me like, who is this guy? And, we do the first scene, the whole crew they say cut, the whole crew starts applauding, and Vince goes, I get it. So, but that's how, it was pitched at such a high level and such a high intensity. You can't rehearse it. You'll kill yourself. So we would just block and shoot it, which is just crazy. So that was my experience.
So when you put the cigarette out on your tongue, was that in the script?
I was just bored. Yeah. I also ate a lit cigarette, which they wouldn't show. And I also stuck a cigarette in my nose, and I inhaled the smoke, and I blew it out in Aaron's face when I was standing this close to him. And Aaron's looking at me like, what the fuck? And I took the cigarette out, and I flicked it, and it blew up on his forehead. And Vince is like, oh my God, that's amazing. We can't use it. And then there was another take. There was a beetle on the ground. I picked it up. I was going to eat it. I lifted it up, and the beetle stood up and waved its arms. And I was going to put it in my mouth and eat it. And Vince said, cut. Vince said, put the beetle down. We can't kill any animals. I said, it's a bug. And they said, put it down. So I had to let the beetle go.
Oh my God. And real quick for you, Dean. You have really, the comedic timing on is just amazing with you. Were you able to improvise any of that? Because it just seems so natural.
That's because I'm a good actor. No, it was. There wasn't much improv on that show. You can't improve on the lines that they gave us. You know what I'm saying? That script was sacrosanct, and it's in my many years of acting, there's always been rewrites and rewrites. Those scripts would come, and except for maybe a legal thing or two that they had to get covered, those scripts stayed the same. And all of the, many of the classic things that you remember Breaking Bad, they were all written in the, not just the lines, but the prose between the lines, In fact, I got a lot of understanding of what Hank was all about in all the stuff that he didn't say, but was in it was like the most amazing, I guess you call them stage directions, but they weren't really stage directions. They were just like, it was like beautiful written prose. And it was like, you would play some sort of, you're like, how the fuck am I going to play that, But he gave you something to think about, and you do it, and somehow it worked. And I think sometimes people understood it, maybe they didn't, but it gave kind of a depth to the character. And then the biggest thing for me in that show was the transition from being kind of the blowhard, comedic, he was like the only comedic guy in there, and thank God, because there was a lot of darkness. But then once the third season hit, and he had the PTSD and the freak out and the panic, he's like, shit, I need to like audition for this role again because it's like a completely different role. And so it was great to go from that kind of blowhard guy. You never see cops. You rarely see cops show any kind of inner angst or problems, or everyone's a hero and they shoot somebody every week and they're fucking shooting them again that next week and they're shooting them again. But most cops, because I did a lot of research, rarely ever shoot somebody. So the fact that he gets in this situation where he has to take out this guy, it played on him, and the fact that Vince was willing to let that kind of weakness, not weakness, but the vulnerability would be a better, show was just phenomenal. When I started reading those scripts after season 3, I was like, wow, this is like literally, taking this guy to a completely different spot that you would have thought, from when you first were introduced to him. So that was a gift from Vince,
How much knowledge did you have of your arc, like per season? Was a lot of that kept under wraps and like, here you go, this is what's happening?
It was a lot of that. It wasn't that it was kept under wraps. I guess it was intentionally kept under wraps. Interestingly, I had my dad passed away in the second season, and just like kind of a miracle, all of a sudden the third season starts to be this season where he's got a lot of vulnerability and stuff like that, and so it was something that I kind of took from that experience, which wasn't very nice of your father passing away, and using it in the character, and it just happened. It was like, oh, I don't have to be funny, hot, crazy guy. I can actually use some of the stuff that happened in my life, So maybe season by season. I knew the last season. I literally knew what that last scene was going to be 2 years before it happened. Vince took me aside and said, "Spoiler alert, but you're gonna die, but you're gonna die with your dignity." And he said, "You're gonna say something like, fuck you, I'm Hank Schrader, And sure enough, 2 years later, there it was.
And speaking of final scenes, Patrick, your final scene was probably one of the most intense things I've seen on TV. I have to ask you, how did you prepare for that, and how many takes? That was literally off the charts.
Well, first of all, I want to get new agents because clearly I should ask for double and not rehearse. Do I? I didn't know that was an option.
Got to ask a Mexican.
Yeah. No, Howard was always guided by the great words that they wrote. I hung my characterization on that, and those beautiful suits that Jennifer Bryan, our costume designer, gave me. It was like a suit of armor. But in that particular, to end the whole thing, and I'm sure everyone has had their ending on this show, rolling up to it, 7 years of work, 7 years of characterization, fun, friendships, and bonding. And when it comes down to it, I didn't want the character to go, and literally I was standing there with my two best friends, Bob and Ray, when it goes down. I mean, Lalo's a nice guy, but he wasn't my best friend, you know what I'm saying? But what it felt like was it was just abject loss. And there's no way to prepare for it, really, because in the end, even though you're doing a scene where you know the outcome, in the end, we go to work. And you go to work with the intensity of what you need to do, hanging your performance on these words and this action and the direction and whatnot, relying on your scene partners. Bob and Ray were like the best scene partners I could ask for to work with, and Michael McKean. Plus, I would watch these guys, observe them, steal from them liberally, especially this one, because his ability to be still and to listen and to have an inner life was a lesson that this fast-talking actor really tries to take note of. And in the moment when Howard leaves the stage, what I loved about the writing was that Howard's on fire. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry, things don't work out for him, by the way. But Howard's on fire. It's the most Howard says in the entire series. He's chatty Howard the whole episode. And when Lalo comes in, all of a sudden Howard's like, oh, what are you? They're lawyers? You need to get better lawyers. Like he's doing open mic, He's like really flying, and then boom, it hits. And I think it hits everybody because the writing's intention was to shock you that it could be you. Wrong place, wrong time. I wasn't in the game. I didn't deserve it. And it wasn't until I was taken away that I think there was maybe a moment where people go, oh, maybe he's not an asshole. He didn't deserve that. But it was weird also because that day when it was all over, it's show business. It's not show love. And you're done. And you say goodbye, and you walk off the set, and I got to my trailer, and I started taking my suit off, and, for the last time. And I was like, oh, the curtain's down. It's done. And you say goodbye, and we hug, and we'll say we see each other later on, but you drive off the lot, and it's over for you. And you know what they all did the next day? They went to work. Forgot about me like that.
It was a very iconic scene. I have one more question, and then if you have a question on this side of the room, line up over there. If you have a question on this side of the room, line up over there. We'll try to get to as many as possible. I have to ask Raymond and Giancarlo, how did you guys manage to put so much likability into these villains? I mean, I like those guys. I wouldn't hang out with them, but I like them.
When I read the script for Breaking Bad, it hadn't even aired yet on television, and I got the script and I read it. I saw it as a comedy. I know a dark comedy, very dark comedy. So I really tried to find, to the character, to himself, what would be funny to him about this, and how that makes me feel. So I just use that.
For me, so much of our stories are the same, and we've never really even talked about it. Because in the very beginning, they wanted me to come back as a guest spot, and I said yes, and they offered me a contract, and I said no. Because I had been so inspired by the first 2 episodes I did, and they said, why? I said, well, because you're going on hiatus, and I'm a working actor, and you give me a holding fee, and I'll be tied to you. So if you still feel that you have this love for me and you want to write for me next season, come back to me. And then they did, and I said, well, I want to talk to Vince. And why do you want to talk to Vince? I said, I just have some ideas, and I'd love to be able to speak to him to know if my ideas are in concert with what he's thinking. And so I spoke to him, and we were off to the races. What I wanted was not to play what you would think of as a stereotypical human being or villain. I wanted to play someone who was human, who encompassed both the dark and the light. Someone who was fastidious, someone who had great integrity about what he did. Because I believe in our lives, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so for me, it's the practice of that, the dedication to that, the commitment to that, the surrendering to who you really are through your divine presence about the energy you put into doing what you do. And I do what I do for me, to be able to elevate my own spirit. And once I can elevate that, then maybe what you will see will be an elevation of your spirit. So for me, I wanted to play a very different kind of quote-unquote villain, because I believe in my heart that we all are light and dark. I believe in my heart that the hero is the flip side of the anti-hero, right? So I believe we're all heroes. It's the choice we make that allows us to be on the right side, light side, or the dark side, right? We make that choice. I make that choice every day. I make that choice about my life. Am I going to be up or down? Am I going to be good or bad? Am I going to be mean or evil? Now, by me knowing that allows me to have a different consciousness and flow through what I do. So for me, I think what you saw was a guy who was committed. You got to commit in your life, right? You choose something, you commit to it, you follow it through. It's going to have its ups and downs, but if your intention is where it should be, you will always win. If your intention is where it should be, you will always win.
Amen.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Let's get to questions.
All
Go
right.
hit that side of the room.
Your name and your question.
Braden, and what was your guys' favorite episode that you starred in Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul?
My favorite episode was Grilled, when I get killed and it was over.
My favorite episode was when I killed the motherfucker. Just kidding. Mine was where where I came to terms with the fact that Hank felt that it was such a God. It was so hard to say the lines without crying, because it was his realization that he wasn't the man that he thought he was. And it's particularly hard for a guy like Hank, who was this kind of blowhard, big guy, tough guy, and then he sits on the bed with his wife and he says, you know, the universe is telling me something, and I don't think I could be a cop anymore. And I thought, wow, that was gonna like just, you know, a man like him to have to say those lines and come to the realization that he might not be a cop anymore was my favorite.
I liked Howard's last scene, I mean, the last episode a lot, but it wasn't just because of the blaze of glory, but I love the fact that he finally was able to say, I see it all, I get it, and he's the only one. He's the raving madman who actually sees the stars align, but there's no one to listen to, and I like that a lot.
For me, it was 401 Box Cutter in Breaking Bad, because it was a scene where, I mean, for me, I profess that actors love to act, we love to talk, we love words, it's like poetry to us, and we are translators of those words. And in Box Cutter, there were no words, few words. And so we learn to, and it's what we do anyway, whether you realize it or not, we read each other's physicality. We take in with our eyes and our being, and in Box Cutter, that's what I had to do. And I had to display how I was feeling through, on an emotional level, not only through my eyes, but also through my physical being. And to me, that's an exercise that I love to practice. So for 10 minutes, I said nothing, but you knew what my intention was. In Better Call Saul, my favorite scenes are becoming quickly the episode, I think it's 609, where Gus walks off into the sunset after coming out of his shell and almost making a connection. In our lives, we so desire to make the connection that we have been unable to do if we're held close to the vest, or if we're shy, or if we just are not in a place where we're able to show who we are to each other. And in that episode, Gustavo makes a connection with the bartender. He really wants so much to share that connection and to talk more and all that. And then he closes right back up and he goes about his life, and you'll meet him again when we start Breaking Bad. So those are two of my favorite episodes.
Hi, I'm Sean. What do you think each of you would be doing for careers if you never became actors?
I was planning on being a rock star.
I would have been an archaeologist or a chiropractor.
I would have been a professional boxer.
I would have been a professor.
All right, the next question.
My name is Amber. In Breaking Bad, who would you guys consider to be the hero if there was a hero? Or is there a hero? I do too.
Anybody?
I'm not in that show. Go.
Well, I consider Tuco to be the hero of his story. That's the way. I never looked at Tuco as a bad guy. I'm surprised everyone else did.
I mean, I thought Hank, obviously was the hero to the anti-hero. And if you look back at the show and you've seen it more than once, you kind of see the parallels between this, English teacher getting worse, and then you see this Hank guy kind of coming to terms with his own reality. And, the only guy that didn't compromise in the show was Hank. So.
For me, I would say it would be Walter White, because he's a great representation of the hero and the anti-hero. He's a great representation of all of us who feel powerless and don't feel seen. I attest that, that many of us want to be seen. We want to be acknowledged. We want people to see us for who we really are. And so then sometimes we take on the guise of being powerful or threatening just so we can be seen and acknowledged, or vulnerable even, in a situation so we can be seen. And so Walter is all of that. He puts on the mask to be powerful. He has fear of death. He has goodness enough that he wants to supply for his family when he's gone, but it really grows into being more about his own power and his own feeling good about himself. How do we take all that when we wake up in the morning, no matter what we do, and look in the mirror and go, I can see myself. I'm seen. I'm where I should be at this time, and acknowledge that, love it, champion it, and then bring it to the world in that way.
Oh.
I get asked this question a lot because of the parallels, and my answer is always, I don't know that you can root for somebody who's going to kill, like blatantly, when they drug addled Aaron Paul's girlfriend and the boy in the bike. And it's hard for me to accept that somebody who's truly turned into a psychopath and is willing to kill a couple people. It's just tough for me to take that. But I get that question a lot.
Well, we got a question on this side of the room. So,
Walter, he's back.
Good afternoon. My name's Walker.
Close enough.
Thank you all for being here. Obviously, it's pretty important to me. But I did have a question. When Hank was going through the PTSD and the mineral collection, not the rocks, the minerals.
Thank you.
Was that legit? Like he had an interest in that, or was that just an obsession that came about because of his trying to not deal with stuff?
I think the latter is the case, in terms of how I played it, at least. When you don't have any. The worst thing about what happened to him is that he's in this hospital and he's. His wife, then when he gets home, his wife it just like has to take care of him and, wipe his butt and all these things. And it was so humiliating to that character. And I think he just found different ways to kind of strike out, to kind of claim some sort of power again. And it happened to be, hey, we're going to do this collection, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to learn about it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to get pissed if you don't understand they're minerals, not rocks. And I think that came from just trying to grasp something instead of being stuck in a bed, with your wife having to take care of you, so.
Okay, and next question right here.
Hi, my name is Carrie. First of all, I love you all dearly. My question is for Patrick. Can you hit on this earlier, but can you elaborate on what it was like to actually film the scene where Lalo shot Howard, what that was like?
Well, we're actors and we play for a living and whatnot. When we were rehearsing, there was, the first time I got a chance to work with Tony Dalton, who's a wonderful human being, love him. But we're rehearsing that, and he's got a rubber gun. And at one point, he sticks it up to my head, and we go bang, and I fall over and all that stuff. And I sort of joke with him. I'm like, "Oh, Tony, why are you doing that?" And he goes, "I'm sorry, it's in the script. I have to do it." And that's kind of the answer. It's in the script. We're driven to do it. And the actual filming of it, I will say this: Bob Odenkirk was a great number one on the call sheet for us. He led by example with good humor, but mostly hard work. We took it seriously, and that allowed us to play when we were on set. So when we were doing it, they understood that it was like, my swan song and that. And so Bob took the mic to begin the day and just basically said, "This is it, end of the line for Patrick. So let's redouble our efforts and let's have fun." But real quick, I want to say, even at the end of 7 years, working with everybody, being on the crew, 30 years under my belt as a performer, I have a lot to say in that final scene. And I come in and I start doing that monologue and running around, and it's not good. And I know it's not good. I can feel it. And I start getting nervous and I start getting crazy. And now I'm imagining that Bob and Ray are also looking at me and going, "He's not good." And you get nervous and crazy. And Tom Schnauzer's there, and he came in and gave me some notes, gave me some adjustments, because that's what you do. You take and you grab help. And then we had a pass where I did it top to bottom. And at that point, Bob and Ray looked over at me, and they gave me that wonderful actor connection. They looked over and they nodded. They go, "Yeah." And you could feel it, like we had found a groove. It took us about half an hour, but we found a groove. And all of a sudden, we're like, back to the top. Let's do it again. Ran it a couple of more times, but then we had found a spot. And I was reminded how much I love working, how much I love that sublime moment of, I can't name exactly what it was, because I was saying all the words in order, and they were still there in their positions, but something was different. And then we went about the day doing that. And I thought, how lucky am I to be able to do this sort of thing with such wonderful artists. So again, in the end, taking off the suit and driving away, it's a big moment, but blessed to be having the day ahead of me, beforehand, you know what I mean? So thanks for the question.
Do you have any of the suits? Did they let...
None.
All right.
Well, I tell you what, to be fair, Sony paid a lot of money for those suits, you know what I'm saying? And to be fair also, Sony has used those suits to auction off for charities and stuff like that. And I guess they considered they had given me enough already at that point.
Got one more question on this side, then we're going to go back to the other side of the room.
Hi, my name is Everett. This question is for Mr. Esposito. I'm fascinated by villains who are the heroes of their own backstory. And I wonder how the more that you're informed, the more backstory we know about Gus, how or if it informed what you do from that point on in your performance.
Yeah, part of my job as an actor is if it's not there on the page, which normally it isn't, you get some references as to where you're from. And in this, there was some really wonderful prose that describes what's going on within the scene. But I'm a legend in my own mind. As an actor, and I think that's the right place to live. And if you're a legend in your own mind, you conjure up where you come from. You conjure that up. The next season is going to be all about where I come from, who I am, what my family is. Of course, it's not. But if you make that up, then it feeds you. What I did and have learned through my career is that it's not only about the words on the page or the words that you say. It's about the juxtaposition of the words that I'm saying to you right now and the opposition of what I'm thinking in my brain when I say them. So I'm now thinking something completely different than what I'm saying to you. I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas. You dig me? So I'm learning how to finesse that. And so the more I know about who I am without it being galvanized and written in the Bible of the show, the fuller I am, the more I bring to what I'm bringing here today. And to me, that's my homework. All right, my homework is also to learn the lines, but that's easy homework. When you've been doing it for 30 years, you've been doing it all the years you've been doing it, that homework that's drill homework. The real homework is the underneath it homework. And that's what you're going to see when I'm just saying the lines and not giving those lines the focus and attention that you think you should when you're a young actor and you have to say it like that, right? That's the difference. And so for me, it's very important to create a template, a backstory, building blocks of who I am, where I come from prior to this very moment.
Great. All right, we only have about 10 minutes left, so let's get a couple of questions from that side of the room.
All right, here's one from some bad product.
My question is for Giancarlo, and I just wanted to ask, how does it feel to be a part of almost a lot of different universes being a villain? And what's your favorite villain that you've played?
I have to say I feel so very blessed. I don't know when it happened for me, but I made a decision that I was going to do all the work that I could. I wanted to work with people who were better than I am, writers, actors who were way better than I am, and not allow people who are smarter than me to make me feel small, but to allow myself to be vulnerable and present enough to observe and be in their presence and give myself my own validation and power. So for me, part of my success is that I'm in a lot of different shows with a lot of different demographics, fully committed to those shows and fully loving being in them. The other part of it is I've always asked the universe guidance in those choices. What is it about what I see in the material, forget the money, forget the contract, forget everything else, in the material and in who I'm gonna spend my time with, right? And that to me makes all the difference in the world. Because I've been with some great actors who sit there and they don't even fucking look at you. Like, I'm here too, right? And that's not, that's selfish. But to be present and not in fear of being non-selfish. So anyway, long story short is I have a lot of shows out there that I fully commit to that I really love for very different reasons. Who's my favorite villain? Come on, man. Come on. Gustavo is to me, iconically has taught me so much, right? Like, I asked to be inspired and I was. And when I was inspired, they saw what I was doing and they wrote toward that inspiration. So for me, I didn't do anything. I took what was there, channeled it, and lived and said things truthfully in the moment that were real for me. So Gustavo is a gift to me. I was just able to, look, when the door opens, are you going to be ready? Like, have you thought about that? Your dream job, your dream moment, the dream part of your life that you always wanted, right? It's going to come. Are you ready?
I love it, baby.
That's that blue meth working right there.
Next question, please.
Hello, my name is Casey, and I was just wondering, were there any parts of the show, like scenes or episodes, that you thought were going to be like a certain way, and then when you watched it, was like drastically different, or did everything like play out exactly like you thought it would?
Well, there was a lot less close-ups of me than I thought. I can tell you that. That never leaves me. You do a scene and you think, oh, I've done this scene. It's going to be all about me. And even though I know I'm not supposed to think like that, I'm not thinking that. I'm an adult. I'm mature. Blah, 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 and then I see it and I'm like, well, why are they on Bob? That was a really good moment. Why are they shooting Ray Seahorn? You know, and it's like, my mother would call. My mother and father would call after seeing the show. They had not seen Breaking Bad, I'm sorry. The lovely folks, they live in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. They're now 90 and 86, and they watched, yeah, absolutely. So blessed to have my parents alive. They would watch the show. They don't have a DVR. They watch it at 10 o'clock at night. I know they're sleeping through most of it. But without fail, they would call me at 11:05 East Coast time and call me in to say, hi, Pat, we watched the show. You weren't in it very much this week. And I keep that in my brain to remind myself, it's called Better Call Saul, not Better Call Howard. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, next question.
Hello, my name is Taylor, and I'm from New Mexico. And this one is towards Hank. I was curious how you felt about being a DEA agent, how your on-screen wife, Marie, had everything purple.
I loved it, man. I spent a lot of time with the actual DEA people, and they were very supportive of the show. And I felt a real commitment and a duty to kind of portray those guys in a correct fashion, you know. In fact, I really felt that pressure because I didn't want to, have DEA guys coming up and going, "You sucked," So I wanted to give them the due that they deserved. And as far as Marie loving purple, I still don't know what the fuck that means. Somebody can tell me.
All right, we got time for just one last question. You guys are going to be headed back to your table to sign and hang out. So if you didn't have time for a question, please hang out. I would love to hang out with these guys too, but I got to work in here.
Hi, my name is Evan. I know a lot of actors, especially method actors, try to delve into like a feeling or an emotion or an action right before they get into character. They're very like ritualistic. Was there anything any of you like did repeatedly to try and get into character before walking out on set? Like something you really tapped into?
I would snort meth.
And I'd like pretend to bust them, so.
Come on, Patrick. Come on.
Yeah, no meth for Howard, sorry. Like I alluded to this before. I'm quick. I get in my own way. I don't allow things to happen. So the suits were real big for me. The suits gave me a sense of armor and gave me a sense of purpose. And I allowed myself to be. The old Cary Grant, he used to talk about when he would walk, he would try not to break the seam of his pant when he walked. And that gave him his motion. And I thought, protect the suit. The suit is my thing. And it really was a forefront for me. So it wasn't much of a ritual, but all right. I looked in the mirror and I said, man, you're good looking every time I went out.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I had the opportunity of directing, was it 606?
Yeah.
And being in your office and really experiencing how you did wear that suit and how that allowed you to light up. Not that you ever hid behind it, but that it really just elevated your whole emotion and your whole sense of who you were in that character, and I loved being there in that moment. For me, my only ritual, I can remember back to 401, Vince was directing, there was going to be box cutter, a pool of blood, they didn't have the right size rubber boots for me. I looked over at some boots that were there hanging with some other fishing gear, and asked for those, and the wardrobe person was new and said, oh, you can't have those are Brian's. I said, but those will fit me, and Brian's not, he's here, but he's not wearing them. Oh, but you can't have those. And I went, okay, I got to stand in all this blood and cut this guy's throat and make this physical move and all these things, and I let it all go. And so the ritual for me was to leave the space for anything to happen, to shut up, to observe the chaos, to stand in the corner and be quiet, because I'm gregarious. I like to talk and hear all the actors' stories and all that. But when I'm there on a set and we have so much time to shoot, I realize your preparation, especially for Gustavo Fring, was silence. So people would come up to me and they'd think I was in a bad mood. Are you okay? Are you okay? No. And I would say very kindly and gracefully, I'm fine. And I would turn to the wall because I'm gathering myself, right? It's, to me, what I do is a meditation and a prayer. I honor it very, very deeply in my heart and soul. And if I can stay in that place for that particular character, that was the best preparation I could ever do, because but there's this. Yeah, right? I can really see you. I'm not seeing my words, I can see you. I can shut up. I can see you. Right? And so to me, that practice has helped my life. Right? And so for me, it was that. That was my little ritual. I love doing it, and also standing very straight and very tall and very proper.
There you go. Give it up.
You guys are awesome.
They're awesome.
Thank you.
Dean Norris, Raymond Cruz, Giancarlo Esposito, Patrick Fabian. You got more in you than that. The Breaking Bad Better Call Saul panel.
Hey there, this is Nolan North, and you are watching Fandom Spotlite. Good for you. Very proud of you. Now go watch more. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom. I like that.